The end of apartheid in South Africa was hailed as the birth of a rainbow nation where whites and blacks would live side by side in perfect harmony like a John Lennon song. It's now disintegrating under the weight of racial revenge politics as South Africa's politicians seize land from white farmers who are beaten, killed and demonised. Donald Trump is giving these persecuted farmers refugee status in America, but instead of being welcomed by the pro-refugee left-wing elites, they're being mocked and condemned. It's a real mask-off moment for the left-wing establishment. It's revealed all of their anti-white racism. The left only seem to like refugees when they hate America and claim benefits. This all came to a head when South African President Cyril Ramaphosa visited the White House and Trump wheeled out a television like a schoolteacher in the 1980s to show Cyril a greatest hits reel of South African politicians calling for white farmers to be killed.
Turn the lights down and just put this on. It's right behind you.
Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing because the killing is part of a revolutionary act.
Shoot to kill. Yamasa. Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa.
There's nothing you can do. There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land. Yes. South African occupy land. That's who we are.
The mayor of DA in PE is a white man. So these people, when you want to hit them hard, go after a white man. They feel a terrible pain because you have touched a white man. Not because Mashaba and Soli will not be touched. They will be touched, don't worry. But we are starting with this whiteness. We are cutting the throat of whiteness.
We will expropriate land without compensation, whether they like it or not. If they object, they can seek refugee in America.
To kill your master. Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa.
That wasn't a clip from Glastonbury, well not yet anyway. This man is South African politician Julius Malema, leader of the left-wing economic freedom fighters. He's at a huge rally calling for the murder of white South Africans, the Boers, descendants of Dutch settlers. Instead of condemning the guy calling for racial mass murder, the left are picking holes in Trump's claims and calling Trump a racist, white supremacist conspiracy theorist, which is when you know that something's correct. Yes, Trump may have got a couple of details wrong. Some of the images of body bags turned out to be from the Congo, a different violent hellhole in Africa. But since the end of apartheid, more than 4,000 white farmers have been murdered in South Africa, many in torture-style killings involving boiling water, irons and rape. These aren't just robberies, they're ideological and deliberately brutal, and they've been encouraged, if not directly incited, by South Africa's political elite who want to turn South Africa into a socialist paradise. I guess you can't make a communist omelette without breaking a few egg farmers. Julius Malema isn't the only politician doing it. This guy openly wants to kill women, children and pets.
If 5 white people will kill their children, will kill their women, will kill anything.
These are the people I collected milk bottle tops for to send into Blue Peter to save them from cholera or whatever in 1985. I asked my dad to buy a copy of every single Bob Geldof charity single. At the time, I thought it was just to buy some shower gel for Bob. That still seems like a noble cause. Julius Malema is only alive because 25 years ago, Bill Gates used some of the money you spent on Windows Millennium to buy malaria nets. I wish I could go back in time and give this guy a malaria net infected with smallpox. Look at the placards in the crowds. Kill white people. This woman has a white baby on a pole. Do they know it's Christmas time at all? If they did know it's Christmas time, they'd push Santa off the roof to achieve racial equity and then steal all the presents. Julius Malema might be the most extreme. He's a communist who chants these songs at rallies, but the ruling party, the ANC, have also chanted it at their rallies.
Bazobaleka dula. Sizobadula. Bazobaleka dula.
Two white South African golfers attended the meeting with Trump, but they didn't help Ramaphosa out. One of them revealed that his dad's farmer friends were murdered.
I grew up in an area in South Africa that is a farmland area, Polokwane, and there is some issues up there. Obviously, my dad was a property developer as well as a part-time farmer, and yeah, some of these buddy farmers got killed. The farm is still going. My brothers run it. But it's a constant battle with farms they're trying to burn the farms down to chase you away. So it is a concern to try and make a living as a farmer, and at the end they, without farmers, there's no food on the plate.
The details of these farm murders are horrifying. A 2017 case involved a British woman, Sue Howarth, and her husband Robert Lynn, who were tortured with a blowtorch, stabbed and burned during an attack on their farm in Dullstrom. Sue died from her injuries. Another horrific case in 2011 involved the Viana family in Walkerville, where a 12-year-old boy, Amaro Viana, was drowned in scalding water and his mother was raped and murdered. Brendan Horner, a 21-year-old white farm manager, was found strangled and tied to a pole on a farm in the Free State Province in October 2020. There's an endless list of cruel and barbaric murders. Each one of the crosses in this picture represents a murdered farmer. Official statistics on farm attacks are non-existent due to what human rights groups have described as a cover-up by the notoriously corrupt government. And these aren't a fair fight. A lot of cases it's old men and women being tortured and killed. It's not just about killing white farmers, it's also about seizing their land. Ramaphosa stated that he intends to seize land without compensation from those he does not regard as our people, obviously meaning white people.
The question of land, the land of our forefathers and our foremothers must return to our people without any fail and without any payment of compensation. And it must happen now.
The Rainbow Nation has turned green with envy. You'll see left-wing commentators push the statistic that white people own 72% of the farmland in South Africa, and that has to be unfair. I mean, it's true that whites do own most of the farms, but they only own 22% of the total actual land. They've just turned that land into farmland. There's nothing stopping the government helping black South Africans from farming the land that they've got, but that's hard work. It requires investment and planning. The government finds it much easier to just seize land from the white farmers. The government is pushing the Land Court Bill and equitable access to land legislation that allows the expropriation of land without compensation. This is code for legalised theft of white-owned farms and businesses. The narrative pushed by the left is that these lands were stolen under apartheid, but this conveniently ignores history. Most Afrikaners bought the land, often from tribal chiefs, many of whom weren't farming it at the time. Yeah, I mean, admittedly, they might have got a pretty good deal being able to swap some beads and mirrors for the land. I mean, before you swap land for beads, you might want to read this bad boy, The Art of the Deal, always going high. If you want 50 shiny beads for your 10,000 hectares of prime arable land, then start high, demand 100 shiny beads and a nice feather. But however they got the land, the Afrikaners built a modern Western civilization on it. Blacks from every corner of Africa migrated there as there were now farms providing food and industry requiring workers. The land reform program is Marxism with a race filter. The government's idea of equity is robbing private citizens to pay off their political base. There are more race laws in place in South Africa today than there were under apartheid. It's one of the most racist countries in the world. If these laws were against black people, the left-wing establishment would be up in arms. But because they're against white people, it's seen as some sort of racial justice. South African-born Elon Musk tried to launch his satellite internet service Starlink to help rural Africans access the internet. But South Africa's government refused to issue a license because Starlink wasn't majority black owned under black economic empowerment laws. That's right, the government is using a law called Black Economic Empowerment to block infrastructure that would economically empower black people, and it's all just because a white man is behind it. So while school children sit in the dust in rural South Africa shoving stones up their noses, ANC bureaucrats pat themselves on the back for protecting racial equity. The only people getting rich are the politicians, and everyone else suffers. Yeah, this is socialism, all right. When white people are the majority, we can't do enough to elevate black people over ourselves. We have special hiring programs to get non-white candidates. We have diversity and inclusion coordinators. We pull out all the stops. Look how white people are treated when the majorities are reversed. People on the right have accused Malema of calling for white genocide.
I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I'm saying to you, we've not called for the killing of white people, at least for now. I can't guarantee the future.
Yeah, but I mean, you'd understand somebody watching that, especially as it gets shared on Twitter, they freak out. It sounds like a genocidal call.
Cry babies. Cry babies.
I'm not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now.
I can't give you a guarantee of the future, especially when things are going the way they are.
Subtext.
Especially if things are going the way they are, there will be a revolution in this country, I can tell you now.
But the response from the left-wing media has been silence. Can you imagine The Guardian ignoring a white politician calling for black people to be killed? Or worse than silence, the New York Times interviewed Bongani Nkolunga, who teaches politics at the University of Johannesburg, who said, "The phrase, kill the Boer, is not meant to promote violence against individual farmers. It's a call to mobilise against an oppressive system." That's all apparently. It's not hate speech calling for the murder of white farmers. It's a noble rallying call against an oppressive system. And the day before this article, the New York Times described the country song, Try That in a Small Town, which is popular with Trump supporters, as calling for racist violence. So according to the New York Times, openly calling for racial genocide is fine, but looking out for your neighbour is racist violence. We're living in clown world here. President Ramaphosa, rather than uniting his country, has inflamed racial division. He called Afrikaners fleeing the country cowards, mocking their desire to find safety from state violence and institutional hatred.
None of us ever having to want to run away to another country for fictional reasons that we are being persecuted. We are united in diversity, and none of us should ever feel that they have lost courage, that they've now become cowards and want to run.
But you'd think Western institutions would welcome these persecuted refugees with open arms. After all, they welcome in so-called refugees from perfectly safe countries. But when the refugees are white, the mask slips. When Afrikaners, who are often skilled, Christian, culturally Western and English-speaking, well, when they seek asylum, they're mocked. The left smears them as entitled colonisers, even though many have lived in South Africa for centuries. The migration service run by the Episcopal Church in America is refusing a directive from the Trump administration to help resettle white South Africans granted refugee status, citing the church's long-standing commitment to racial justice and reconciliation. There we have it. It was never about helping desperate refugees. It's all about racial justice, vengeance, in other words, against white people. The left can't hide their real motive. Equity is the forced redistribution of private property. This is just communism. They'll get equality, all right. Everyone will be equally hungry.
We want to bring in the refugees from South Africa. Are you happy?
I would prefer if the Rohingya came here first.
Why is that? Is that because they're brown? Will you support our petition to bring down the white South Africans? Why is that funny? Now we have people that will integrate easily. They speak the language, they share similar cultures.
That's
Why
racist.
wouldn't?
Even though the white Afrikaners are fleeing persecution and murder at the hands of black people, some black Americans seem to be calling for them to be killed.
Good morning. This is for the South Africans who are going to be entering the United States. This is just a public service announcement. I just wanted to make you aware that the black people who were students during apartheid, we're grandmas and grandpas now, and we have the air of Gen Z. One more thing. I also want to let you know that our president, he has Secret Service, and you will not.
And this commentator says that white South Africans deserve it because they're the descendants of people who created apartheid.
These are the descendants of the people who created the most diabolical system of white supremacy in human history, apartheid. But what has happened in this strange, bizarre world we're living in is that the Afrikaners have become the darling of these right-wing white supremacist movements around the world, that it's like the lost cause for them. It's like the old Confederacy. They're held up as these white Christians who are being dispossessed of their land. It's like this is a modern replacement theory in a country where, by the way, white people make up 7% of the population and own 78% of the farmland. So there's no injustice here.
The saddest thing is that it's destroying South Africa. If you want to feed everyone, killing the people who know how to grow food probably isn't the best way to do it. Today, over half of South Africans depend entirely on government welfare, and that welfare is paid by a tiny sliver of the population. Just 2 million South Africans out of a population of 65 million pay 80% of all personal income tax. That's an even worse ratio than Britain. The tiny productive minority is carrying a vast bloated state on its back, one that's rife with corruption and incompetence. And instead of thanking the people who pay tax, the politicians are stirring up hate and resentment towards them as the rich and encouraging them to be killed. Is it any wonder they want to leave? The South African government is a complete shambles. Its air force can barely keep a single aircraft flying, and the ones it does have are just used to ferry around senior government figures so they can feel important while they're destroying the country. Rolling blackouts cripple businesses every day. Roads, rail and hospitals are crumbling. It's just like Europe. Corruption is endemic. Billions in infrastructure funds are looted. Basic services are collapsing. But the government blames white farmers. It's as if the Soviet Union and Haiti had a baby and gave it Julius Malema as a nanny. Seizing land from white farmers isn't a good idea if you like eating food. Zimbabwe is next door and shows where this rhetoric can lead. In 1980, the left-wing politician Robert Mugabe took control of a Zimbabwe recently freed from British rule. Zimbabwe should have been a shining success story for Africa. It had a good infrastructure, fertile soils, and well-run farms, which meant it was the breadbasket of Africa. And for a while, everything was fine, but faltering support led Mugabe to pursue racially divisive politics, whipping up hate against white farmers, just like Julius Malema is doing now in South Africa. Mugabe said, "If white settlers just took the land from us without paying for it, we can just take it from them without paying for it." The thing is, most farmers, like in South Africa, had bought their farms after independence, so the titles to the land weren't issued by evil colonial Brits who had stolen the land, but were issued by Mugabe's own government. But it didn't matter. The rule of law was out of the window. Mugabe's armed militia, many of them veterans of Zimbabwe's civil war, killed and terrorised white farmers and seized their land. Of the 4,000 commercial farms in Zimbabwe, all except 500 were seized, and instead of being given to the people as Mugabe promised, they were divvied up between Mugabe's political cronies and family and military men. They turned out to be terrible farmers. Crops died in the field, production collapsed, they killed the cattle for food and ate the seeds for the next year's harvest. Farm equipment was sold for scrap metal. If you think we've got it bad, Zimbabwenomics was something else. Inflation hit 79.6 billion% month on month. People starved, and a country that used to export millions of tons of food became dependent on charity. Killing white people turned out to be bad for black people too. It looks like South Africa could be heading in the same direction. Inequality is worse than under apartheid. Unemployment is at a staggering 33%. With soaring food prices, power cuts and violent crime, the country is fertile ground for a vicious demagogue like Julius Malema to bring about white genocide and reduce his country to dust and bones. And does it provide a warning for the West? With mass immigration and multiculturalism, and with our governments guided by the same ideologies for racial equity, could the West go the same way? I've got a video coming out soon about the current trend for abolishing whiteness and decolonising. These are very fashionable ideas in Western institutions, but is it a good idea to abolish whiteness? I'm going to look at places where whiteness has been abolished, like Haiti and Liberia, and see if abolishing whiteness made these countries great. You can probably guess what the answer is. And I was talking about Julius Malema 2 years ago, so if you want to know about stuff like this when it's over the horizon, subscribe to my channel. And if you want to support me making these videos, then sign up to my Patreon. It's a great community of the only sane people left in the West. Okay, thanks for listening. I've been Leo Kears. Bye. Bye bye.